Ty Gibbs finally earns his first career win. Is he a threat for the championship? Ryan Blaney might be the fastest driver with the slowest pit crew. And what about that Bristol race? Because I actually think the low downforce, high horsepower, I think it's actually working. You might not agree with me. I'm gonna defend Bristol. Hear me out, and you might notice today's episode of the Gay Racing Podcast is a little bit different. Alex is gone. What do you mean he's gone? Don't worry, he'll be back next week at Kansas. Alex, he worked like overtime for a month with his real job, and he's just tired. If anyone with a job would know, it's just he needs a few more days of rest. So I was going to get a guest to just come on, but then I was like, what if I just did a solo show? Oh my gosh, it's just like I get to do whatever I want now. I don't have Alex nagging me about, we have to stay under a certain time limit. Let's not yap about this. Like, oh my gosh. So I'm free. I have no reins on me. We're going to have a great episode today. And really, I'm not alone because our Patreon supporters gave some really good comments about this weekend's Bristol race, which we'll get into in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about Ty Gibbs finally winning his first career race, his first career win at Bristol. And he did it in very convincing fashion, holding off Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson, right? I think it's really important that he won this race and it wasn't, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like you could say, oh, his crew chief made the 2-tire call. Sure. But he held off a really hard charge against the two fastest cars that led the most laps at Bristol yesterday. And, I knew he would get his first one at Bristol, Ty Gibbs. I just kind of assumed it was going to happen like 2 years ago. I do think it is not the best look for it to take 4 years, but like, who cares? It took Joey Logano like 5 years before he really started winning consistently. This is very normal progression for a driver. Most drivers take 3 or 4 years before they start winning consistently. We saw that with Chase Elliott, William Byron, Kyle Larson, even to an extent. It just, you're not in. Listen, this could also end up being Ty Gibbs' only win of the year. It wouldn't surprise me, but I think that's worst case scenario. This 54 team has been on a roll this year, the last month. They are barely finishing outside the top 6, and they now sit 4th in points. You kind of have to circle them as maybe they are one of the favorites for the championship. I mean, it's still really early to say all that, but the finishes don't lie. This consistency it's better than what some of his teammates are putting up in terms of consistency, right? He's only behind his teammate Denny in the points. So Patreon Finley went on to say, the one thing you cannot say about Ty Gibbs is that he did not deserve that cup win. Holding off Larson and Blaney with 100 lap older tires was the definition of clutch. And yeah, I agree. Like that's just that what a way to win your first race, right? You don't want to be the David Runeman and winning your first race with the range shortening or range shortened race like Justin Haley has. Chris Buescher's first one was like that. This is an awesome way to win your first race. Bristol being one of Ty Gibbs' best racetracks. Patreon member Dirt went on to say Ty Gibbs absolutely earned that win. I wouldn't exactly call it a long time coming though. He had to figure himself out at this level to win today. Last year's Ty Gibbs chokes that finish. Hell, last month Ty Gibbs would choke a finish like this. Remember at Phoenix, they gave him control of the race at Phoenix. He had the lead late in the going at Phoenix. Could not he couldn't deliver the win. He couldn't finish it off. But I remember I said on our episode of the Gay Racing Podcast after that race, I was like, the more that Ty Gibbs puts himself in these situations, the more likely that he's finally going to come out and win a race. And, it feels so surreal to say that Ty Gibbs won a race, right? He always kind of felt like that extra little Joe Gibbs racing car that, he'll get points and he'll be there, but he just wasn't winning. But now it's like, the floodgates might open. Will he win next week at Kansas? I mean, he could. That is kind of the next step for Ty Gibbs because we know he's good at Bristol. Alex even went to pick him in our fantasy game. We played it. We did an episode last week, so we played it in our text. And Alex did pick and get the win with Ty Gibbs. So Alex saw it coming. Other people saw it coming. the question is now, what other racetracks can Ty Gibbs go and perform at and win, right? Because we go to Kansas next week, and it's like, okay, well, I'm circling Denny Hamlin as my favorite, right? How competitive is Ty Gibbs going to be there? Because again, Gibbs is finishing top 5 like nearly every single week ever since COTA. So just something to keep an eye on. Not much else to talk about Ty Gibbs. Specifically, I do want to mention Kyle Busch because it's going to circle back to Ty Gibbs, because Ty Gibbs had to not only hold off Blaney and Larson in that last run, but he also had to hold them off on that green-white checkered. So let's talk about Kyle Busch, because that green-white checkered only happens because Kyle Busch is retaliating on the other monster car in the race, Riley Herbst. And I love how as soon as we see the 35 car spinning, bringing out the caution, everyone on social media is dogging on Riley Herbst. Like, of course, Riley, you can't keep it together, really. Your Toyota teammate's about to win his first career race, and you couldn't keep it straight on the track. Come to find out, Riley had a little bit of help getting spun. It was off one of the corners. I don't know if it was turn 2 or turn 4. Kyle Busch basically ran through him after an incident the two had earlier in the race. And that brings the question of, well, is that okay? Like, it's a little hard to sit here and be like, I love when drivers get to kind of be aggressive and retaliate, because that's a very aggressive thing. Like, that's kind of almost crossing a line to retaliate with your race car on track. But it wasn't like he didn't mean to wreck him, right? Like, to quote something that happened at Bristol 20 years ago, he might have just or 30 years ago almost, just wanted to rattle his cage, right? Like, Kyle Busch made the decision that, hey, I'm going to drive through you off the corner. That's what happened. Whatever happened, if your car gets loose, that's not really my problem. I respect that. I just don't know if I respect it when it's 3 laps to go at Bristol. And we had some Patreon members kind of agree with me. Let's see. Brendan on Patreon says KFB almost became the headline of the week with 3 to go. Yeah, we would have been talking about that all week. I get the revenge payback thing, but come on, man. You're an experienced driver. You got to know that intentionally wrecking someone at the back of the pack with 3 to go is a boneheaded move. Get them back earlier or wait until next week instead of almost spoiling someone's first ever Cup Series win. When I put myself in Kyle Busch's situation, I kind of get it, because it's the opportunity came to him at that moment with 3 to go. Riley Herbst ended up in front of him. And again, the way Kyle Busch retaliated, it wasn't, you can't penalize it. It's not like it was a right hook. He just ran him over, like off the corner. Riley Herbst was slow. Kyle Busch was not going to give him a break. And I think that's fair. Somewhat. It's a little ugly. Jordan Bianchi had a really good thing to say about it on the teardown. Surprisingly, he kind of like, if you want this aggression and this boys have at it kind of flavor that NASCAR has, you kind of have to accept moments like this where Kyle Busch is. It's like, you can't really say he intentionally wrecked. Allegedly, he intentionally wrecked Riley Herbst, right? He just ran him over off the corner. Wiley was a little slow. He didn't give him a break. Patreon member Phil goes on to say about Kyle Busch, it is time for my boy Kyle Busch to announce that he's driving trucks full-time next year and chasing the Daytona 500 till he finally wins one. I wasn't thrilled with him landing at RCR, and it just isn't working out. Not sure he's going to be a contender with this new car. And the thing about Kyle Busch is, what's really interesting is Ty Gibbs winning yesterday broke a 4-year winless streak for that team at JGR, because that 54 team used to be the 18 team, and the last time that team won a race was with Kyle Busch. Get this, at Bristol, the spring Bristol race. It was on dirt, but that was the last time that team has won in the Cup Series. Now, there's been personnel changes, crew chief changes, so how much of that team is even the same group of guys since 2022, who knows? But I just find that really interesting. It is also interesting to note that Kyle Busch still leads the win total over Ty Gibbs, even in RCR equipment, in these last 3-4 years. but I don't know how much longer that's going to be true. I've said here before, Kyle Busch will probably never win again. I still kind of believe that, especially if he stays with Childress. Ty Gibbs, however, he's got a lot more wins coming. I think that is obvious with his performance in the last month or so, just stringing off these top 5, top 10 finishes. So I'll be curious on what month this year Ty Gibbs might surpass that, because I don't think, again, it's likely he's going to win again this year. No guarantees in life, but yeah, I just wanted to bring up Kyle Busch because that was a big moment of the race. It brought us to overtime. It gave could you imagine how ugly it would have been? And I can hear Alex now, because Alex is the #1 overtime hater. Anytime there's overtime in a NASCAR race, you bet your ass you can go to the Gay Racing podcast and hear Alex complain about it. He does not like overtime. And that's fair. It's stupid. Because our two options yesterday is we see Ty Gibbs lose an opportunity to win his first career race because Kyle Busch retaliated, or we got what we got, where Ty Gibbs did what he was supposed to do anyways. So, anyways, Ryan Blaney, another one that got away. It's a bit of a theme with Ryan Blaney in terms of his career. He's very fast, has a lot of speed, but races just tend to get away from him, whether it's his own doing or not. And his theme this year has been his pit crew. So he led 190 laps. Kyle Larson, Blaney had the pole. Larson dominated the first 2 stages. He just seemed to have the better car. Plus the 12 was like giving up spots every time they entered pit road. That didn't help either. But once stage 3 got going and we had a lot of green flag running, Ryan Blaney was able to finally get by the 5 car, passing him on the outside. Larson was sticking to the bottom a lot. I think just to help the nature of his car. I guess it was kind of loose on exit, but normally you stick to the bottom if you're loose, because it's just you have to use less throttle, but something I learned on night racing. But anyways, Patreon member Dirt goes on to say Jonathan Hassler's strategy blunders and inability to properly coach and rally a pit crew reared its ugly head again. Got completely outclassed by his competition today as a strategist, to the point where Larson was calling out the 12's crew. That did happen during the race. And listen, I think Blaney had the best car, and he's had the best car in a lot of races this year, right? At Phoenix, he had the best car and was able to win despite pit crew issues, right? He was really fast at Martinsville, did not have a perfect day on pit road either. And this is his, the third race in the last like 5 races where we have really major pit road issues for Blaney. And this is costing him possibly wins, possibly points. It's hard to say. Really, if you're going to point to something costing Blaney the win yesterday, it's the strategy call, which Dirt calls out. And I think that's fair, because even in the O'Reilly race the other night, tires, like staying out, won the race for Connor Zilisch. It's been hard to pass at Bristol. We'll get into more of that later, whether it's easy or hard to pass or not. But it is a bit of a blunder, right? I think 2 tires obviously was the right call, but hindsight's 2020. When you have the fastest car, you don't want to take 2 tires though and make yourself not the fastest car. I think the 12 team, especially Blaney, the way Blaney was able to run the bottom and just get so much throttle up off the bottom, you would have thought that he could have just made up the ground again. He had a really fast run in stage 3, but even then Ty Gibbs got by him before we even got all those cautions. So I don't know. It's not really, I don't know if they're going to figure it out. They apparently have a bunch of new guys on their team, on their pit crew, a bunch of young guys. They need the reps. I've heard people argue, okay, why are they getting reps on the 12 team and not the 2 team, like a more mid-pack team? There's a lot that could go into that. I've never put together a pit crew for a NASCAR Cup Series team, so I'm not going to speak on that too much. The good news is Ryan Blaney is still second in points. That's important. He has a win this year. I think he'll win more races. I think his pit crew will continue to get better, but they need to, because here's the problem. We'll talk about Chevrolet in a little bit. In fact, I think we'll talk about them a little bit. Chevrolet's not having the best time. Hendrick's not having the best time. Those are points, right? Those are wins that are now on the table. Blaney's main competition most weeks are JGR, right? And the 12 team, they can show up at, especially at these short tracks, right? Where the Penske's been strong. They can show up to these short tracks with the fastest car. But the fastest car is only marginally better than all of the JGR cars and all the Toyotas. And that margin is not even close to the margin of the pit crews, because JGR is not marginally better with pit crews than the 12 team. They don't consistently make mistakes. The 12 team is consistently making mistakes on pit road. That is going to cost them positions, points, races, maybe the championship. Even now, right? If Blaney gets on a tear and starts chasing down Tyler Reddick, if he misses beating Tyler Reddick or Denny Hamlin or whoever for the regular season championship by a few points, that's like 25 points, or is it 15 points? 15, 25 points that he's not going to get when we head off into the playoffs. So this, even they have time. They need to get this fixed before the chase. I think they will. But the thing about this point system that I love, the mistakes that you're making now still probably matter. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Let's talk about Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson highlights an interesting stat. The last 3 races, we've had a driver sweep stage 1 and 2, and then they went on to not win the race. Brad Keselowski at Darlington, Denny Hamlin at Martinsville, and Kyle Larson at Bristol. 3 straight races where this has happened. But Patreon member Blake, who always loves to say very, very awesome things about Kyle Larson and also crash out over him. Who doesn't? He brought up a really interesting point. So Blake goes on to say, this is a classic situation where you might expect me to have a crash out over the 5, but at the end of the day, it was an entertaining race overall, and Larson had a great points day. Larson had a great points day. About a month ago, what race was it where Larson just like threw it away? What race was it? He had a DNF at Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta. He made that stupid move on SVG. Darlington. What happened at Darlington? Why did he 32nd at Darlington? Something happened at Darlington. Didn't he just spin by himself or something? I don't know. Either way, I talked about that at Darlington though. I remember that. I remember now. I talked about it at Darlington. You got a points race, right? That's what this 5 team kind of needs to learn. And, looking at their finishes, they've been top 10. Anytime that they're not having problems, they're top 10, top 5. They're great. And I love how Bristol, especially a day where Hendrick Motorsports wasn't that fast, Kyle Larson comes here and, they have one of the better cars. They have one of the best cars. And it sucks not to get that win. It's not ideal. When you're Kyle Larson, when you're Hendrick Motorsports, your goal is wins, right? To win the race. Third's not that bad, though. Third's not that bad. And I think if, he didn't throw that race away with all of his aggressive moves, trying to get the lead on the restarts, not throwing this race away on a day where we saw a lot of drivers, including his teammate Chase Elliott, make mistakes. Christopher Bell made mistakes. Like, we saw a lot of our stars today make mistakes because of, the higher horsepower, lower downforce. It was not a straightforward Bristol race. Kyle Larson surviving that, getting a top 3 plus the 2 stage wins. Yes, great points day. That's what we need. That's what's going to get him to catch up back to all the Toyotas and all of the winners in the point standings. Kyle Larson is 6th in the point standings. He is the highest one without a win so far. And we're coming up to Kansas next week. Kansas is earlier in the schedule, but Kansas was the site of his last win, his last actual win. He won the championship, but he didn't win a race. He has not won a race since last May. I'm not worried about it, though, because, again, the 5 teams running fine. They're going to win. They're going to win. And that's why I say stuff like, Ty Gibbs might not win again this year, because you can be one of the best teams, like the 5 team, win the championship, and you just don't win a race. You just, get some seconds and thirds. But good that they didn't throw this finish away. Let's talk about the rest of Hendrick Motorsports, though, and Chevrolet for that matter. Because, Chase Elliott had problems. He wrecked on the final lap. You wouldn't know if you watched the race on TV. He had to check Twitter for that, but, whatever. Chase Elliott finished 22nd. William Byron was like 5 laps down. He went to the back. Started at the back. And then the extra caution in stage 1 doesn't help because Byron got put a lap down because he was trapped back there, which whether that was from speed, whether that was from traffic, dirty air, you name it, he was trapped back there. Got put a lap down. Then the caution came out. He got put another lap down because that's what happens at Bristol. If you're a lap down, you start at the back, you get lapped again really soon. And it just spiraled from there. Every time a caution's coming out, yeah, he's going to get another lap put down. It was an ugly day for William Byron in that 24 team. They genuinely weren't that fast. They weren't able to carve through traffic at all. And I wouldn't be concerned. We saw something like this with Joey Logano at Darlington where, they were literally running like 30th. Joey Logano finished 33rd at Darlington. And I think this has to do kind of with people are citing the Chevy body problems on why Hendrick's struggling. That could be why they're kind of struggling overall, but their short track package and their Bristol package hasn't been that good. Kyle Larson has always kind of carried his equipment at Bristol. He's always been one of the best drivers at Bristol, no matter if Hendrick's good or not. Byron in this 24 team, I think Denny said it on his podcast with the new package that we have. We've never run this at Bristol. Not only the higher horsepower, but at Bristol in years prior, they ran the full diffuser. They ran the full diffuser that they run at the intermediate tracks because Bristol's it's got banking. It's kind of high speed, even though it's short track. But now with lower downforce, that I can't imagine what setup changes and what they have to do to try to optimize the car, the balance of the car. Denny Hamlin described it as guessing. William Byron, the 24 team, it looks like they guessed majorly wrong. Denny even said on his podcast, he now knows what direction to lead his team. I'm bringing up Denny Hamlin just because he's a driver that's spoken on it. But as we go into the fall Bristol race, the Bristol night race that is in the chase, a very important race, the third race of the chase, a bad day at Bristol in the spring is going to help you have a good day at Bristol in the fall, I think. Right. I think the 24 team, especially Hendrick Motorsports, having 4 completely different cars, the 5 team could possibly share information on what worked for them, even though driving styles are probably different between Larson and Byron. That probably is also why their performance is different. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. It happens. I think it's going to happen, at some of these other kind of short tracks or these other tracks with the higher horsepower. The next race the next oval that we get with the higher horsepower will be Nashville in over it's like a month and a half away. I expect similar stories. I wonder who will be that time. Like who's randomly going to guess wrong and run 30th? Is it going to be Denny Hamlin? Is it going to be Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson? I think that'll be the fun thing to look forward to because I think this isn't the last time this year it's going to happen. The good thing is to do it at tracks where we go to again in the chase, get it out of the way in the spring, and then come back with information because Darlington is also a track, right, where we go back in the fall. Alex Bowman came back, which I kind of forgot about him a little bit. Like I was just like, oh yeah, Justin Allgaier is going to be in the 48 this week. Glad to see him back though. I thought it was really touching in the press conference that I forgot who it was. It was Jeff Gordon and somebody else. They were kind of there with Alex Bowman at the media availability, kind of reassuring him that he is not a problem for this team. Like we are glad to support him, through the health problems and for the rest of the season. However, and he was involved in, one of these classic Bristol big ones where it's just like things happen so fast at Bristol. There's a pileup going to the corner. He was involved in one of those to none of his own doing, but he was kind of, running in the back, which to be expected. He just hasn't been in the car in a few months or in a month. Patreon member Finley says Bowman gained 1 point today to bring his tally on the year from 23 points to 24. He is over 150 points out of the chase. It might be time to pack it up on him. And as much as the Hendrick execs can, support Bowman, and support his return, it doesn't look the best, right? When the health thing's not helping, right? and the DNFs are not helping either. But you have to be real. This is not a reflection on Alex Bowman's talent. They have consistently been a team that runs like a Hendrick team. Not a superstar Hendrick driver. Not one that will probably win a championship, but top 10 in points, right? They were top 10 in points at the end of the regular season last year. So I don't think you can ignore that. I don't know if I'm ready to pack it up, because mathematically you can make up 150 points, especially if you win. That's the problem. And I think that is what it's going to come down to. If Alex Bowman can win a race, I think that will make up that. If he doesn't win a race, he can run as good as he wants. I feel like he'll miss the chase by literally 8 points. I think he'll miss it by such a small margin. I think he's going to need a win to make up that little bit extra that he's going to need. So, Alex, so at least he's back now, and we can kind of have Alex Bowman watch every week. I will be interested to see his climb, because he's going to climb. He's 37th in points. He's going to climb up the order. It'll be interesting to see how fast it's going to be. Who should be on fraud watch, though, is Trackhouse. Patreon member Dirt goes to say, I feel like we need to start having some tough conversations about Trackhouse. That team is just plumb awful right now. Even the one team, I know they changed crew chiefs, but this is cataclysmic levels of bad. I brought up to Alex a few weeks ago, how long is it going to take Ross Chastain to catch SVG in points? And it's I think it will happen. I think it's happening. But SVG is still the highest Trackhouse car in the points, still actually in the chase, just barely, because Chase Briscoe has caught up to him after his rough start to the year. And I think it's reflected a little bit poorly on Connor Zillish, who's having his normal rookie struggles compounded by the fact that Trackhouse just sucks right now. I think Hendrick's struggling with the Chevy body slightly, which at first I found it hard to believe, but then I really thought about it. I'm like, yes, aerodynamics, front end of a car. Yes, these teams are calculated to such close margins. I can kind of believe the new bodies throwing everyone off a little bit, especially a team like Trackhouse, who obviously is getting it wrong. And I think, not to mention just the new rules package that is at a lot of these short tracks, they have no idea. They have no idea what to even try. Like, it's like they have no notebook at all. Chastain, yeah, he's just not in the picture at all. And that's your benchmark, right? Connor Zilla struggling. It's like, okay, he's a rookie, right? He's new to this car. SVG, who, again, has been running better than Chastain, even on the ovals, right? Which is weird. Even SVG is like, okay, he's not an oval guy. He's a road course guy. Yeah, he's learning, but he's still not going to be that good. But when it's Chastain, and I don't think it's a driver problem. He's always been very fast, always like top 10 in points. This is an issue. And again, it's one of those things where I feel confident that Trackhouse might improve over the summer, but there's no guarantee for that. Especially when, you say all these Chevy teams are struggling. Baby, Spire has 2 cars in the playoffs right now, the chase. They're doing fine. Carson Hocevar looks fast enough. Daniel Suarez? You mean the driver that was just at Trackhouse is in front of all of the Trackhouse cars in points? Could you imagine how that feels to be Daniel Suarez? Girl, I feel like Wendy Williams right now. That's T. Daniel Suarez versus Trackhouse. So is it really a Chevy issue? I don't think it is. I think it is a Trackhouse issue. Because the second best Spire team right now the second best Chevy team right now is Spire. Just so that we are all aware. One last thing on the racing product. Because I saw a lot of people on social media yesterday saying negative things, of course, shocking, about the race. I really don't think it was that bad. It really wasn't that bad. So tires had almost no fall off. Goodyear brought a compound that was less temperature sensitive, because the whole thing, and you can go back to the Gay Tire Experts that we recorded 2 years ago when we first had that crazy spring race at Bristol with the crazy tire wear. Because in the last 4 Bristol races, 2 of them have had crazy tire wear. 2 of them, nothing. Boring race, processional, right? Hard to pass. There was no in between. It was either guys blowing tires every 30 laps and having to manage that, or no passing. And it was allegedly to do with the temperature of the concrete, right? Because it was basically the track not taking rubber. If the track wasn't taking rubber, then the tires would wear super, 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 super fast on that concrete. I don't think the tire dilemma was necessarily healthy and in the spirit of racing, because I don't know if we really want the crew chiefs to like have to study the weather. Okay. No, because they're studying the weather anyways. But I don't know if it should be so polarizing. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if the weather report says it's going to be a hot day or a cold day, teams are going to be able to get into the ballpark. But it seems like for Bristol and the concrete, there's just this really razor sharp line on whether the tires will lay down rubber or not. And there was not an exact science to it. And it's like, do we really want teams to have to like make these wild guesses on, are the tires going to lay down rubber or not? We kind of do, because those 2 tire wear races were entertaining. They were more entertaining than the 2 races that were processional. However, today's race was fine. There was passing, especially middle of the pack. You can say, yeah, sure, like Ty Gibbs held off Ryan Blaney on older tires. That also happened in the O'Reilly race. Is it maybe just Bristol? I saw some revisionists on social media say that Bristol's always kind of been bad. It's only been good when you can knock people out of the way. Rusty Wallace really put on some stinkers at Bristol over the years. I'm here to believe all of that. I want to talk about what Bristol meant to me when I was a child, because Bristol always had not whatever racing. It's been some, to me, I remember it more for the spectacle of the cars going around the track. But what I also remember it for is the chaos, because wrecks happen fast at Bristol. It's a short track with the nature of pack racing, because there's nowhere to hide at Bristol. Things happen fast. I remember 2014, Timmy Hill literally ran into the back of Matt Kenseth when the caution came out. The caution was already out. Timmy Hill did not slow down fast enough, quick enough. Just ran into the back of Matt Kenseth, who I think was the leader at the time. Things happen fast at Bristol. That's what Bristol has always meant to me ever since I was a kid, and I grew up with multi-groove Bristol, like right when they reconfigured Bristol. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised by the amount of multi-groove we saw yesterday, right? Like, both lanes were actually pretty competitive with 130 laps to go. Larson was defending his lead on the bottom because his car ran better there, right? And they did apply the PJ1, whatever. Carson Hocevar, I saw him making moves through the field. He was using kind of both lanes. Once he was kind of running by himself, he was running on the bottom. Typical multi-group Bristol, right? I don't think Bristol, when it's top dominated, has always been the best anyways, because when cars are stuck on the top, it's like there's not much you can really do to them to get by them. On a track where you have to go to the bottom, there's different things, because, well, you have to wash up on the straightaway, so you could either have a better exit and get under them then, or you have to make them defend if you get a run on them down the straightaway. Like, I always prefer tracks where you run on the bottom, but having the option to run up top is always nice. Some Bristol races, everyone's stuck to the top. It's hard to pass. That's why they've been doing the PJ1. Seen a lot of people say, do we really need the PJ1 anymore? I think that's a fair question. I think it's worth to try it, maybe even for the chase race, because, it kind of ruined the truck race. The truck race, they were all stuck on the bottom, but they weren't really passing either. Like, so it's, you could say it's the next gen car, you can say it's whatever, but honestly, I thought yesterday's race really wasn't that bad. We had a cool story. We had three cars battle. It's not like it was impossible to pass. We saw Larson get passed for the lead. Ty Gibbs just about passed Blaney for the lead in a green flag run. Like, I've seen worse Bristol races. That was really not that bad. And I think we even have evidence of this new rules package working and making the racing better, because we are seeing these drivers lose control. The thing that made those Bristol races so processional is that no one was making mistakes, right? You couldn't pass anybody because it's like their handling might not be perfect, but it's not like they're bobbling off the corner. They have unlimited grip with all the downforce on the underbody, right? Talking about the past. But now with the simple diffuser, these cars have so much less rear downforce, and you saw that, like, guys having moments off the corner. Blaney just about giving up the lead because he's having a moment off the corner, right? The leader of the race, Ryan Blaney, having a moment. Christopher Bell getting damaged. Who else? I was trying to write down. Kyle Busch getting damage. He just about had a moment, and he was right in front of Blaney too, and Blaney was going to lap him. Kyle Busch just about spun the car out. He was able to save it, didn't overcorrect it, surprisingly. It's really easy to overcorrect the next gen cars, but yeah, SVG had a little self spin. It was a very challenging, tricky race. That's NASCAR. That's NASCAR. That's Bristol. That's Bristol. That's Bristol to me, right? It's different than Martinsville, because Martinsville, I feel like it's hard to go fast. I feel like Bristol, it's hard to survive. It's hard to survive. It's fast. DW described it once as flying airplanes in a gymnasium. And I think having a package where the cars are hard to drive, like we had yesterday, you could go farther in that direction. There's probably more stuff you could do with tires or horsepower or whatever, or, you know, obviously aero package, but I can accept that Bristol race. The spring Bristol race has always also been lackluster, and it's why even just going into this weekend, it's like, do we need 2 Bristol dates? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but to be fair, I said this, I said years ago when Bristol was the best track on the schedule. It was the best track with the late Gen 6. It just was. That track in Martinsville, they were just the best. It's not the best track anymore. Even yesterday was not good. I'm not saying it was generational, but I think Bristol would do a lot if it only had 1 date. Because it already, yes, I get why it has 2 dates. It's one of the coolest tracks in NASCAR. I think it's one of the most iconic tracks in NASCAR. When you think of NASCAR, you know, night racing at a high bank short track, that's just cool. I wish we had more tracks like it, but it's also what makes Bristol special. But even when there's great racing, because I remember the 2020 race, the COVID year, that was a great race. The race where Chase Elliott, Joey Logano got together and gave Brad Keselowski the win. That was a great race. Great racing. But, you know, do we really need a 500-lap Bristol race twice a year? No. We don't. We don't. I feel like this event, there's a few things they could do. I think the easiest option, this race needs to be 400 laps. Martinsville did it. 400-lap race. If you're going to have 2 dates, one of them needs to be shorter than the other just to make them different. I mean, I guess you don't have to do that with like Kansas and Las Vegas or whatever, but Bristol, you do not need 500 laps at Bristol twice a year, because sometimes less is more. I also wouldn't hate bringing back the dirt. I would, because I hate the logistics of it, because it's like, I feel like it's just a waste of money. I think Dirt Bristol was one of those things that, like, you know, people in the industry spent money on that. Like, did we really need to spend all that money just to put dirt on Bristol instead of going to a dirt track? But man, that last Dirt Bristol race was really good. In general, they were really good. I would have liked to see them prepare the cars more, and if they're not willing to do that, then obviously don't do it. And a dirt race on the schedule is kind of weird. Maybe that's more reserved for the All-Star race or something. So I will concede on that. Maybe we don't need dirt Bristol. And then there's like Nashville Fairgrounds, which, there's a lot of politics going on with that locally, with the track getting more races. Seeing cup cars there would be cool. Seeing that facility get upgraded would be cool. But they have options. Either it's like, shorten the race, put dirt on it, or give it to another track. I don't think having a 500 lap race at Bristol Spring is helping anybody. I wasn't there yesterday, obviously, so I don't know what attendance was like, but Bristol is one of the more unique tracks on the schedule. I appreciate NASCAR tracks like that, like Darlington, Bristol, Dover, Pocono, even. I love our little unique ovals where there's nothing else like it. That's what makes NASCAR racing special, to go out to all these different tracks. And I think, people argue that the Bristol night race is a crown jewel. It's not. When we do the same exact race 6 months earlier, it's not a crown jewel to me, right? It's just not a crown jewel to me. Same argument I have with, bringing the Charlotte Fall race back to the oval. Same exact argument. Transitioning over to the point standings, and I have a little spreadsheet that I've been kind of working on keeping track of. It's got the right points because I'm a nerd and I calculate. I have formulas for all the little cells and stuff. So chase standings, Tyler Reddick still has the points lead, a 62-point lead over Ryan Blaney. Denny Hamlin third. Ty Gibbs jumped up to fourth in the point standings. And again, it's like, are we ready to kind of talk about him being a championship contender? I'm not sure. And Hendrick Motorsports having such a bad year, right? Well, they're still sitting there 5th, 6th, and 7th in points. Bubba Wallace 23-11. Kind of best of the rest between, Blaney, then the Toyotas and the Chevys is RFK sitting there 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then, Hocevar really kind of holding it down at the end of the chase. Ryan Preece putting all 3 RFK cars in the chase so far. Daniel Suarez and Shane Van Gisbergen round out the chase. And Chase Briscoe finally has caught up to the bubble. He is 17th in points. Will probably break back in after a good run at Kansas, I imagine. Austin Cindric sitting on the outside. And again, like Ross Chastain, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think it's going to be one of those years where it's like Ross Chastain misses the chase. I think that's going to be the big story. I think that's going to be the big name that misses the chase this year. I think it's going to be Ross Chastain. That's what it's starting to look like. Because I don't see those RFK cars slowing down at all the intermediate tracks that we have coming up. So, and going down the points order, let's see. Alex Bowman is 37th in points, 151 points outside of the cut line. It's going to be a tall task to get up. He's got a lot of work to do, cannot have any mistakes in the next 18 races, but we'll be following that every week here on the Gay Racing Podcast. That is enough of the points. And what we are going to do next is we are going to, first of all, how do I get rid of the little restream? They changed stuff. Hide. There we go. Sure. Now we're going to move into hot topics. It's more fun when Alex says it. Alex, I miss you. Come back. It's like Gary come home from SpongeBob. Alex, come home. All right. Hot topics. Colton Herta will not be in the 2026 Indianapolis 500 due to F2 scheduling some makeup races at Montreal. Of course, F2, they had to cancel some of their races that were supposed to be in the Middle East this month because of reasons. And Colton Herta, his obligation this year is F2. He was going to make an Indy 500 start because he was not going to have F2. He was not going to have F2 that in those weeks. Indy 500 attempt rather, but because Colton Herta is no longer able to do it, Andretti Global will not find another driver. They are just kind of focused on their 3 full-time cars, and I get that. I mean, Colton Herta, if you bring a car to the Indy 500 with Colton Herta, I think you have an opportunity to do well and perform well, right? You do. To just to scrape together some kind of replacement, even if there are some out there, it's like, to Andretti, it's like, is it really worth it to spend all this time and energy on a 4th car that might not even have a competitive driver? right? Let's put all these resources into our other three very competitive teams at the 500 lately, right? Like Marcus Ericsson. Let's put all of our resources into our three full-time teams. And, you know, here's the thing. So this frees up a Honda engine, right? Because the whole story right now is that the Indy 500 is trying to scrape together a field of 33, because right now we kind of only have 32. More on that in a minute. The limiting factor for these teams is the engine leases, and Honda, you know, now that Andretti doesn't need that Honda engine, it's like, oh, okay, well, someone else can just take that Honda engine, right? Well, Honda's very picky about who they give the engines, apparently. But they only like giving it to their full-time teams, the full-time organizations, you know, like the Ganassi, Meyer-Shank, and they have no interest in adding an extra team at this point. You know, Meyer-Shank already, they have an extra entry for Helio Castroneves, so they're not interested in having another extra team. Ganassi has no interest, so that Honda, no one's going to use that Honda engine. So no extra entry there. We're losing an entry, right? So let's talk about the field of 33, because it's under threat this year, right? Prema, who won the pole for the 500 last year. This kind of speaks on the state of the sport when the pole sitting team for the Indy 500 isn't going to be at the Indy 500 next year. That's just so interesting to me. Prema won't be there. Prema's not. They're looking at maybe June or July. I don't know if they will ever at this point. It sounds like it's just really hard to put the funding together. Prema's absence and Andretti Global dropping Herta's entry set us at 31, because last year we had 34 cars attempt the 500, right? Minus the two Prema cars, we're at 32, and then minus the fourth Andretti effort, that's now 31. Okay, so Able Motorsports, who I believe I think RC Anderson made an attempt at the 500 a few years ago. They are looking to return to the 500 with Jacob Able, who will be trying to make his first start in the 500. That brings us back to 32. The 33rd entry, Marshall Pruitt reports that AJ Foyt Racing is likely to field a third entry from the request of Penske. You know, obviously, it's been tradition to have 33 cars. There's going to be a big effort to get a 33rd car, and it looks like, you know, there's some extra Chevy engine leases since Prema won't be using them. One's going to Able Motorsports, the other possibly going to AJ Foyt Racing. What driver would be in that car? Catherine Legg or Stephen Wilson? You know, drivers with budgets are the most likely candidates. I would obviously love to see Catherine Legg in that ride, but we'll have to see what happens. And it's just, either way, it's kind of sad, and it's a little embarrassing that we have to scrape together 33 cars for the biggest race in the world. Like, this shouldn't be happening, and there's a lot of like politics that go into it. David Land made a really good video about this whole kind of issue. Is bump day important? Yes, it is. I will say qualifying weekend is one of the best weekends in all of motorsports, and it's not even like racing. It's not even a race, right? It's not even a race. You're not even racing anybody. You're just you're racing the clock. But qualifying is one of the special parts about the 500, and the fact that no one is guaranteed entry into the 500, right? We've seen big names like Marcus Ericsson. We've seen Will Power face down bump day. We've seen F1 legends like Fernando Alonso get bumped out of the 500. I've seen that in my lifetime, right? You could go back in history when Team Penske missed the 500, right? Like, there's been huge moments because of bump day, because of how Indy 500 qualifying gives no exceptions to anybody. Yet to lose that, and we've had races in the last few years without bump day before. You know, I get that. It's just it is important. It's a little sad. Some people argue that if we're scraping together 33 anyways, does it really matter to have a 34th or to have bump day? You know, I get that. I do get that. It's embarrassing either way, but yeah, well, qualifying weekend, it'll still be enjoyable because seeing who gets the fast 12, fast 6, the pole, that will be a big story. But there's gonna be one less little thing to pay attention to. So That's going to be a little disappointing. Speaking of some single car runs at big tracks, that's not really relevant. So preseason Thunder and the Clash are set to come back to Daytona next season, at the beginning of next season. For anyone that doesn't know, preseason Thunder used to be this big test that happened in January at Daytona. I remember especially it was the year the Gen 6 car came out in, I guess, 2013 or something. Maybe it was 2013, but I'm just saying, like, they were testing. I don't know if they were testing it the year before. No, they were testing it that January. Brand new car. Everyone's paying attention to testing. It was just seeing cars on track. There was even a big wreck during one of them, and it kind of had a lot of the teams, they had to leave the testing weekend because they didn't bring a backup. You don't bring a backup car to a testing weekend, right? So now here's the thing. I'm not totally sold on preseason Thunder. There's only so much that teams can even do to improve their car at Daytona. I mean, when you have drivers holding their hand out the window to gain an advantage to block air, I feel like you've reached the limit on what you can do to the cars. I mean, that's just the nature of it. It's not like back in the day. Like I say back in the day, I mean 2012. Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus, they had this thing where they would always run in practice single. Like they would not draft in practice for the Daytona 500. They did it in 2012, I remember, and they did it in 2013. In 2013, they notoriously had the fastest car and won the race, right? Well, not the fastest car. Matt Kenseth had the fastest car, but either way, it's not like back then where you can really trim the cars out and have all these little secrets because you're building the cars yourself. These are spec cars. What is there to learn at Daytona? Nothing. And I don't want preseason Thunder to turn into a show. It should be a test weekend. Other series have test weekends. IMSA has the Roar before the 24, right before their big Daytona race, right? WEC, they opened their season at Imola. I think the week before, they have a test week at Imola or whatever track, right? That makes sense. I think having a testing weekend is necessary for your series. A big testing weekend, a big kickoff to your, not even a kickoff, that's more of like the actual first race. But I don't know if we need to have preseason Thunder at Daytona. The Clash is also reported coming back. I think that's more of an actual kickoff, right? Because it's an actual race. I think the Clash is kind of necessary. Well, the Clash isn't necessary, but I think it's necessary in terms of build up to the Daytona 500, because right now the Daytona 500 has basically no build up because qualifying doesn't really do enough on its own. The duels are like, I mean, they're fine, I guess, on a Thursday night, sure, but they're also kind of just two meaningless races in a way. Not really, but you know what I mean? Like, I think the Clash does a lot when you put it with the Daytona 500, right? When you put it with the Daytona 500, and you know, you could put it how it used to be with the qualifying weekend. Maybe you combine the Clash with preseason Thunder. Maybe, and if you do that, maybe it's 2 weeks before the Daytona 500. Maybe the Super Bowl, I don't know if it's still like that, but if the Super Bowl is a week before Daytona, well, maybe you have preseason Thunder and then the Clash the week before the Super Bowl. And that's your little appetizer, you know, get the teams to Daytona early. They get a whole weekend of testing. And then there's just one fun race. It's a short fun race for TV. You know, after you watch testing all weekend, there's a big race that they get to promote for show, kicks off the season. Great racing. They could be experimental with rules packages. That's what that whole testing, that if they want to experiment with how they can make super speedway racing better. Ooh, I just sold myself on preseason Thunder live here on the Gay Racing Podcast because, they could try lower drag and lower horsepower to make the pack racing more interesting. They could, anything they could do to make handling Anything they can do to make handling come back into play at Daytona. Ooh. Maybe we should have preseason Thunder. Every day they try a new rules package. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Hell, let's do it. I will say I did have an idea. I wouldn't hate preseason Thunder being at a track like Charlotte either, because I think preseason Thunder honestly makes more sense. You know, if you're not going to try a bunch of wacky stuff, just do it at Charlotte. Why do you have to go down to Daytona in January? Because again, what the hell are you learning at Daytona? Right? Like, have the Clash be the proper, like, okay, the Daytona 500 is coming up. Yeah. Preseason Thunder's not doing a good job of that if it's in January, right? Have a test at Charlotte because, one, teams can actually learn stuff at Charlotte. It's, you know, it's more handling actually matters more. So there's more, you know, nuanced things with the setup. Also, you could have a road course day. You could turn the track into the Roval for one of the test days, get some road course testing in. I think that would be kind of neat. You know, just it would be fun. I do think that, again, a testing weekend like that, it also kind of gets the drivers more engaged. It gets the fans more engaged because, you know, if you have a test weekend at Daytona, what the hell is there to talk about? A test weekend at Charlotte. Okay, now the speeds and the lap times matter. Now we're paying attention to it. Now we have storylines. Now we're talking about who's going to be fast going into the new season, right? Kind of like how F1 fans, you know, they talk about their preseason testing before the season. So I think if you're going to bring preseason Thunder back, it needs to be a Charlotte, unless you're going to try some wacky stuff at Daytona to try to fix the racing. But that seems really, really unlikely. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I could see both ways. One more thing to say, Bowman Gray. I appreciated the return to Bowman Gray. I do think it can have a place on the schedule. I don't know about the Cup schedule. And I know people are thinking, you can't have a points race at Bowman Gray. Yeah, the hell you can. If you can have a points race at Bristol Dirt, you can have a points race anywhere. You can just do a special format. Like, why can't you just do a special format where, like, you eliminate parts of the field after certain, I don't know, or basically they do what you do now, have a last chance race, and those positions in the last chance race determine the last, like, 15 positions, like, of the full running order or whatever, right? There's plenty of stuff they could do to have like a stadium, and I call it a stadium race because if they want to ever go to a stadium like the LA Coliseum again, or just anywhere in the world and have a race anytime in the year, so it doesn't have to be the Clash, it could be a points race, come up with some random format, right? It doesn't have to be, and I don't think it's gimmicky either. Like, just, you know, because you just can't have 40 cars on track at a track like Bowman Gray, right? And you can't really have live pit stops either. There's ways to get around that, right? There's ways for the trucks in O'Reilly to go back to more local type short tracks that don't have the facilities for live pit stops on standalone weekends, because you can just have a halfway break or whatever in a world where we didn't have stages or whatever. But yeah. Besides that, that's all the hot topics we really have. Indy 500 preseason Thunder, the Clash coming back. Nothing else really to say in the world of motorsports besides F1. They're still looking at the regulations. IMSA's coming to Long Beach this week, which I always love because I just think it's so Mickey Mouse to see those big prototypes like kind of rustle themselves around Long Beach, around the GT traffic. And WEC is at Imola. They start their season at Imola, the wrong Italian track. They should be at Monza, but whatever. So fantasy, as I mentioned earlier, Alex correctly picked Ty Gibbs to win at Bristol. Very impressed he did that. I wasn't ready to pick Ty Gibbs ever until he would actually finally win. I did pick him at some road courses in the past, but very impressed that Alex pulled off that win. I remember I picked Ross Chastain when he won his first career race. I don't know if Alex has done that with somebody yet. But for Kansas, we are tied 5-5 points each. I get to pick first since I had the worst result in the last race. So I'm going to pick Denny Hamlin at Kansas because Denny has been lights out at these intermediates. He had the fastest car at Kansas last year. He has the fastest car and won both the last two Las Vegas races. I have no reason to think Hamlin's not going to go out and, I don't know if dominate's the right word, but I think he's going to be very fast. right? Alex picked Bubba Wallace, who got almost won the race as well last fall, but turn 3, Denny Hamlin into turn 3 changed all that. IndyCar at Long Beach, you will never believe who we picked. I picked Kyle Kirkwood to win a street course, and then Alex picked Palou. Alex picked Alex Palou to win at Long Beach. But you know what's interesting? Alex Palou has not won the Grand Prix of Long Beach. I didn't realize that until today. I'm like, wait a minute. Palou's never won. Kirkwood's won it twice. Palou's never won at Long Beach. Dixon won 2024. Newgarden won, I think, 2022. Colton Herta won the weird season finale race 2021. Yeah. Palou's never won at Long Beach. I will be interested to see. It'd be kind of cool if he could do it this weekend. Except it wouldn't be, because Alex picked Alex Palou, and then Alex would have even a bigger points lead over me, and I don't need that to happen. Anyways, that is a wrap on our episode of the Gay Racing Podcast. I am slightly exhausted because I just realized how much easier it is when you actually get breaks in talking with another podcast host. That's why podcasts have multiple hosts. I do see, though, like, one of the reasons I opened myself up to doing the solo show is, one, I did it before the Richmond episode 2024. Alex, it was Easter weekend. Alex was out of town, so I did it because I went to the Richmond race, so I had extra stuff to talk about anyways. I will say, I've seen Dale Jr. He just yaps a lot. Yes, he has other co-hosts and stuff, but he ends up just yapping a lot anyways. But to close out the episode, thank you to our $5 a month Patreon subs. They got a few of our last episodes a day early. They get all of our bonus episodes either early, or they just get them because sometimes they don't go on YouTube. Patreon members at $2 a month or higher can join the discussion throughout our episodes. Thank you guys so much, especially this week, for so many comments. It really helped me kind of flow the conversation and of today's episode. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave 5 stars on podcast platforms. Follow us on all the socials at Gay Racing Pod. Follow me at Zack Racing, and you can follow Alex at Newgaden. We will see you next week to talk about NASCAR at Kansas. Alex will be at Kansas, so Alex will be rejuvenated. He'll be rested, and then he'll go to Kansas. He'll probably be exhausted again, but he'll be excited to talk about the race next weekend. And IMSA and IndyCar will be at the Grand Prix of Long Beach. We will see you guys next time. Bye.